Hi, I'm Ed Knights, president of Theater 3. Welcome back to Welcome to the Theater. We'll be talking today about our next play, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? The play opens on Friday, June 3rd, and it goes for that weekend, and the next weekend closing on Saturday, June 11th. I have today with me Victoria Powell, who is playing Martha in our show. So Victoria, you've been actually on Welcome to the Theater before, and welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Why don't you tell our audience what got you started in the theater originally?
Theater started for me in 6th grade. My elementary school was doing Sorry, Wrong Number, and I got the lead.
Whoa.
With only 2 people in it from what I remember. And I sort of got the bug from that, so I continued to do it through high school, doing both plays and musicals. And then I was a theater arts major at the University of Cincinnati.
Wow.
So.
Tell us about what led you to audition for this play.
Well, certainly, I mean, one of the greatest plays of all time, a very iconic role. I think probably a lot of actresses would love to get their hands on it. So I just thought, go for it. Wasn't sure I saw myself as a Martha, because she and I are, I would say, polar opposites.
Yes.
But the audition was great fun, and I'm just very glad to be here and have a chance to tackle that role.
Great. Have you ever played a character like her?
I guess 2 roles would come to mind. First would be Beverly in The Shadow Box. Like Martha, Beverly tended to be loud and crude,
Okay.
certainly very lusty.
Uh-huh.
The other thing I would think of would be Blanche Dubois in A Streetcar Named Desire. I did that back in college, probably my favorite role of all time. And I think Martha has that sense of loneliness and desperation that Blanche had.
Tell us about about Martha's relationship with George, her husband. Is it all anger? Is there anything else?
Not at all. Very complicated relationship, I would say. Many years together, well over 20 years. I think it's a combination of love, lust, hate. There's so much going on in their relationship and so many levels that I don't even know if I have been able to explore it all yet. Every time we have a rehearsal, I see more things between them and more things about Martha. So it's very, very deep.
Wow. So so the rehearsal process for you is not just learning your blocking and memorizing your lines. There's a lot more to it, particularly in a show like this.
Certainly, you would hope there would be.
Yeah.
If it's just about blocking and lines, I would think you're missing the big picture there. But there are lines that I've said 30 or 40 times now, and suddenly I think, oh, I said that because of something that happened 10 minutes ago. So those things, keep occurring to you.
Have you done plays in a black box setting? A black box means that the audience is almost on top of the players, and there's a very minimal set. So have you ever done a setting like that?
I have done a black box back in college, and I believe it was a Sam Shepard play. I want to say Red Cross.
Okay.
Very, very different sort of plays, very unusual. And I've also done Sexual Perversities in Chicago by David Mamet in a black box setting.
How do you feel about being that close to the audience as an actor?
It's certainly a little bit intimidating at first. You just have to get very comfortable with yourself. You can't get distracted. You have to have absolute focus, so you're not trying to sneak a peek and see who's in the front row, or if somebody coughs or sneezes, you're going to forget your line.
Okay.
You really have to zero in.
Well, great. Thank you very much. We all look forward to seeing you in the play, and I understand it's a challenge, and I know that you're up to it because I've seen you on stage a lot.
Well, thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
I have with me now Marin Coffeeins, and you may remember her from a prior interview as well. And she's playing the role of Honey.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Why don't you start by telling us about how you got interested in the theater in the first place?
Well, I think my interest in drama in general began with my parents, who were always very dramatic in their bedtime story readings. They would give voices to all the characters and everything. So that kind of piqued my interest. But my first role in community theater, too, was I was a fourth grader. I was playing Mrs. Fred in A Christmas Carol.
Oh,
and I think from there you just get the bug and you can't stop. And so.
Did you study theater at any time or take?
No, I didn't. It's always just been a
learned
hobby.
on the job.
Yep.
Good, good. Well, you apprenticed to the
Yes.
whole thing. Excellent. What led you to audition for this show?
I had just finished Steel Magnolias with
Yes.
Theater 3, and I had a really good time, and I just figured I'd come on down and audition for it, and it was a multi-stage process, but eventually I got the role, and I'm really happy to be back.
Tell me about your character, Honey. What is she like?
At first glance, you could say that she's a bit of a space cadet. She is not always with it, but there's more to her than that, and you can say that for all of the characters in this play. She is hiding a secret from not only her husband, but from George and Martha as well. And later that's revealed, and it makes so much sense within the play, but I don't want to
don't
divulge it right now.
Right. And in part of the play you have to be drunk, is that right? Or you're drinking?
Most of the play.
Most of the play you're drinking, okay.
Yes.
Have you ever played a character who has had too much to drink before?
No, I haven't, and personally I don't drink very much either, so all of my experience has been witnessing other people, so especially in college. I guess I'm referencing my time in college and various parties as my source material. But
so when you're playing somebody who's drunk, is it a change in your speech or in your how you hold your body? And do you feel like you're sort of like the person who's drunk is trying to fight through it and pretend and be normal in spite, or do you just sort of let it go and be drunk?
In Honey's sake, she just lets it go, definitely. I think it varies for whomever is getting drunk at that moment, but yeah, for Honey, she has no inhibitions. Once she's gone, and she's kind of happy when she's drunk, but she's also she's more extreme, I'd say.
And you do a little dance of your own.
I do some dancing.
You do some dancing.
Interpretive dancing, yes.
And had your character studied dance at some point, or is he just someone who likes to move?
I think so. In a lot of respects, I think Honey is still kind of trapped in her childhood developmentally. I see. So I think she thinks of herself as a ballerina in that scene. Yeah.
And so when she's dancing, she's in her own world.
Yeah, most of the time she's in her own world. She's removed from reality.
Got it.
Yeah.
And are there any other things you'd like to say about this play, or
It's complex, and it's probably one of the more challenging plays I've had to deal with. I think, as Victoria already said, you can go into rehearsal with an idea of how you want to say a certain line, but then you leave that rehearsal realizing that there are different implications, that it can mean something else.
So it's a constant learning process as the rehearsals go on, because
yes.
of the complexity of the play. It's not like a farce where you just got to get the bit right, and then it sort of carries itself.
Right.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I have with me now Casey Preston, who is playing Nick, and welcome.
Hello.
Why don't you start by telling us about how you first got started in theater, what got you interested?
Oh, geez. The first show I did was for church. Probably playing Joseph when I was 3 or something.
Wow.
I did a lot of theater in high school. I did it some in college. I don't have a theater degree, but I was part of the theater department for a while, just taking the performance classes. I got a degree in science instead. And then I've been doing theater on and off my whole life.
What was the last show you were in before this one?
Oh, geez. It was a show, a fringe show down at the BPT, Boston Playwrights Theater, a new work. So it was interesting going from the new work at the show
to the iconic.
To that, yes, the very, very iconic old show with kind of more traditional characters.
Do you think the fact that it's so well known makes it harder for you to put your own stamp on the character, or do you find you can sort of let go what you've seen or what was in the movie and just pick your own way?
Well, I've never actually seen the movie.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. I think good. I don't know. I mean, because some people have seen it a lot of times, and then it makes it might make it harder for them to have a different character from what they've seen.
Yeah. No, I generally don't have that type of problem, but I read this show. And I never saw it. I read it back in college as one of the classics. I just wondered what was happening. And I remember reading through it and saying, oh, this is really interesting. These characters are acting weird. This is surreal, absurdist. Yeah. And then at the end, it hit me so hard when I realized what was going on. And when that type of theater where you think you're seeing something and you're reading through it and there's like a naturalism but absurdist to it. And then at the end, when it all comes together, I remember thought I need to do that show. Obviously, George and Martha are the iconic characters, but and when I was reading it, I didn't notice Nick and Honey as much. They always felt more just like audience surrogates, but there's so much more going on with those characters than maybe the fact they don't have as many lines that you...
Tell me about your character, Nick. What's he like?
As I said, I think he's a little bit of an audience surrogate in that he's on stage probably more than Honey is, and listening to a lot of what the other characters are saying. So he's a way for Martha and George to bounce off of. But he's kind of like the audience. He comes into this situation where he doesn't know these characters, these Martha and George, and is expecting one thing and gets something else in terms of what he expects for a relationship. He's more of a traditional, he's new at the school, he's a teacher, a traditional, probably more traditional, especially for that time period, 60s expectation of how husbands and wives work together and what his career is going to be, and he wants to advance his career through getting to know these people that are very important to the school. And then from there, everything goes a little out of control in his life as he slowly loses control. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question about listening as an actor. When you're on stage in a part where there is a fair amount of listening, as you were saying, do you have like an internal dialogue, or how do you stay present to what you're being told when you have no lines?
That's interesting.
When you've been told it like so many times in rehearsal.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things to do in theater, and I actually think it's one of the most interesting things to do in theater. In fact, there's a couple shows I've done specifically because all I get to do is sit on stage and I just react to what's going on, and to stay present in that moment it's very interesting. I personally just listen, and when you have people like playing Martha and George, the actors that are so good, you can just listen like, oh, that's amazing.
Night after night, and it's still like, wow, what are they saying?
Yeah.
As they're saying that they come after the after the rehearsal, they're thinking about it, or they're saying it a line another time, and they're saying, this has another meaning.
Yeah.
So even now in the rehearsal process, they're seeing that going on.
Yeah, and one of the nice things about doing a show just for 2 weekends like this is it never becomes something where it's like 6 months in and suddenly just you're out on stage and like oh my gosh, the show's
doing your
going
laundry
on.
list, doing your shopping list
like,
in your
I'm
head.
supposed to be on stage. Wait, where are we?
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your coming down this morning.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. I have with us now Robert Runk, who is directing Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Welcome to the theater.
Thank you.
Tell us about what led you to want to direct this play.
Well, Sean asked me
Let me tell us who Sean is. So Sean is our artistic director at Theater 3. Sorry.
Right.
Go ahead. Okay.
She first asked me to direct a fall show. Can't recall just offhand the title of it. Oh, Moon Over Buffalo. And I read the play, and she and I discussed it, and I said, boy, that plays a huge production challenge for a theater company. So I think she then changed her mind about what you wanted to do in the fall. And then she asked me if I'd like to direct this play for the summer black box production. And I said yes. It is an interesting play. Albee might have called it Long Night's Journey into Morning because it bears some resemblance to the O'Neill masterpiece. It also bears some resemblance to No Exit by Sartre because you've got 4 people trapped in a room all night long. But it's a multi-layered play. At first reading, I read it a number of years ago, maybe it was when I was in college. I didn't like it much because the surface of the play is pretty nasty. But then once you get into it, you realize that there are a number of layers in this play. And there is a sort of reality fantasy split in the play, which gets resolved at the end in a quite remarkable fashion. Also, as you get to know the play, you realize what a skillful dramatic construction it is. Albee really did quite good work in constructing this play because it goes to considerable climax at the end of each act. I hope the audience stays with us, particularly through the first act, because there's a lot of talk that goes on, but boy, this play builds its momentum, and that third act is a killer. Let me tell you, it's a killer. So I can anticipate that at the conclusion of this play, the audience is going to sit there stunned for a few moments before they begin to applaud.
When there's a play with this much complexity or this many layers, do you as a director kind of let the characters figure out each layer through the rehearsal process? Because I mean, they certainly are talking about, I just discovered there's another meaning to that line. Because is it something that you mostly let evolve, or do you say, you know, you're missing this layer, you're missing that layer? How do you do that as a director?
Well, casting is 90% of the task, as you know, in directing a play. If you cast the right actors, then you've got a good job going. And I feel that somewhat in luck, I succeeded in finding 4 people who were just right for their roles. And I believe in working on a show as a collaborative process. As an actor myself, I like to be allowed to develop my own feeling about the character and what the character's doing, and that includes even the movement in the play. Because I like to let the actors develop their own movement before we begin to set the blocking of the show. So it becomes a real process of working with the actors and developing their own characters. Now, as we go along, I'm in the position of audience during rehearsals, and so I will tell them, oh, you're blocking, you're upstaging yourself, you're not speaking clearly enough for the audience to understand what you're saying. Mainly technical aspects of the performance that I'm addressing with them. And occasionally I will address specific issues of, I think it would be better, George, if you were more matter of fact in this particular scene. And that kind of thing. But it's sometimes a fairly delicate process of working with some actors who are very experienced and have a very definite idea of what they want to do. So you kind of have to sometimes have to negotiate what's happening.
So it's kind of group art in a way. Because you have the playwright, of course, and then you have all the other artists that are involved, which are the actors, you, and then course, the lighting and whatever design that requires.
Yes.
In the show is.
Oh yeah,
well,
it's collaborative with the production crew as well as with
sound.
the actors. Yeah, absolutely. No, theater is an entirely collaborative process, and it's interesting that if you watched a whole series of productions, say of this play, you would see a whole series of very different plays, basically, or certainly realizations of a particular script. For example, I've seen the movie, which is a wonderful job, but for instance, my George and my Martha are quite different than Burton and Taylor were in that film. So you come to your own realization of a play in the course of developing it with a particular crew of actors.
It would be like multiple different people painting a windmill.
Yeah.
They're gonna, maybe the same windmill, but you can tell as much about the painter or more than you can about the windmill from
That's
a series
right.
of paintings. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. Each one's going to look different. But
Well,
I'm looking forward to this, the production of this play. I think, to me, it's a prize winner. Now, it will be adjudicated by EMACT people for Dash Awards, and who knows what the result of that'll be. But my hopes are that we'll at least get some nominations for some of the actors, at least. That'd be nice. We'll see what happens.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your coming down.
Thank you.
Now interviewing Wayne Vargas, who's playing George in our play. And some of you may recognize him from a prior show that we did about Titanic. So Wayne, why don't you tell our watching audience about how you got interested in the theater in the first place?
Oh, well, back when I was in college, I used to work during the summers at the college, and one summer they had a summer theater, and I had no idea that I liked theater. But every night they had rehearsals at the college, and I worked during the day, but there wasn't much to do at night. It was Stonehill College, actually, and it's not close to anything. It's little, but anyway. So I went to rehearsals every night. And I kind of became a gopher, because they had already had all the auditions. They couldn't, I didn't act. Well, I didn't even know I wanted to act. But so I watched all the auditions. They did Jacques Brel, they did The Fantastics, they did Stop the World, I Want to Get Off, they did Picnic, and they did a combination of 3 shows, just musical numbers from. And I was like, oh. So I auditioned next summer. So next semester, the first thing I did was audition for a show.
Tell us about your history with this show, with this play.
When I came to Boston, I decided I'd read every play that was written. So I started with the A's. So I'd go to the Boston Public Library, grab all the books by Albee or Ennui or whatever, Anderson. So I read Albee, and Virginia Woolf, oh my God. It's one of the most amazing plays I've ever read. Partly because it's so ambiguous. What just happened? At the end of the night, you're like, what just happened? After like 3.5 hours of like, you're like, wow, but anyway, so I never thought I would get to do it. I never thought I'd be old enough to play George.
Okay, and now you finally hit the jackpot. I see, you aged into the part. That's good.
I never thought I'd be old enough to play. I just thought of George as an old man. But he isn't. He's only 40-something. But so it was just a surprise. If there's a villain, it's George. But there's no bad people in this play. These people dislike themselves so much that I can't. It's the saddest play. But you see Martha as a villain because she's bossing and she's yelling and she's. But when you actually, this is what I found out when I started learning the lines. George has all the lines in the play. George has quite a bit more lines than Martha, and he makes things happen more than Martha does. Martha reacts to what happens, but George makes them happen. If there were a villain in the play, it would be George. But George is this when you see the things that he talks about, shooting his mother and killing his father, we don't know if those are true. We have no idea whether that's true, but even if it's not true, why is he fixated so strongly on that story of a young man killing his mother and his father? You know what I mean? You've got to be somewhat damaged for that to be such a part of your psyche. So whether it's true or not, and to me the evidence seems to point a little more towards the fact that it is true, but whether it's true or not, George is an immensely damaged person, but then Martha is too, and they fed each other so much for so long.
It appears like it's an exciting role for you, that this is something that you...
It is, but it's so difficult because I think in 40 years it's the most difficult part I've ever played.
Wow.
I really think, because I think back to the big parts I've played. Now there was John Proctor in The Crucible. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful part, it's a big part, it has a lot of drama, but he's not conflicted he is conflicted between should I do the right thing or should I do the wrong thing. But he's not conflicted about who he is.
Whereas George,
and then Cyrano de Bergerac, you know, it's this wonderful, all this stuff you get to do, you know, but he's kind of got a bit of peace. He's torn apart because he's in love, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't think anyone could possibly love him. But there's a center to it. I can't find a center to George. I can't. And just today, that's what
none of the other characters can find a center to him either.
Yeah, but just today I thought, well, maybe that's why Wayne, the artist or the actor, can't find the center because the guy can't find the center. So maybe it's not as hard as I think it is. Maybe I'm making it harder than it is, but it's hard. It's very hard.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you for watching another episode of Welcome to the Theater. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf will be opening on Friday, June 3rd. And closing on Saturday, June 11th. For more information, you can go to theater3.org.